Sorry about that, this remote's been acting up lately. Anyways, let's talk about Solo. So most of you are probably more than aware of the troubled production this movie went through, from the questionable casting of Alden Ehrenreich as a younger version of Han Solo, to the very controversial sacking of the LEGO Movie's directing duo, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, followed by the last-minute hiring of Oscar-winning filmmaker Ron Howard. It also didn't help that the heated backlash that The Last Jedi received failed to calm down people's fears of this being a complete cinematic train wreck, which resulted in the film having one of the weakest turnouts of any Star Wars picture. But despite all the behind-the-scenes drama and poor attendance, is the movie still any good? Well, let's look at the story, which is relatively simple and basically features everything we'd expect out of a Han Solo origin movie, like how he became a smuggler, how he first met Chewbacca, how he won the Millennium Falcon from Lando Calrissian, played by the perfectly cast Donald Glover, and of course how he made the infamous Kessel Run in no more or less than 12 parsecs. Joining in on this trip down memory lane is Woody Harrelson as Space Woody Harrelson, Game of Thrones Emilia Clarke as a pre-Leia love interest, and an extremely feminist droid activist who sounds an awful lot like Captain Phasma, but rest assured is not Captain Phasma. As you might have guessed, there were a lot of things about this movie that I personally took issue with, but not for reasons you might think. For starters, the movie makes no attempts at hiding the fact that it is nothing but pure fan service and plays everything absolutely safe from start to finish. Something that I greatly admired The Last Jedi for not exactly doing. Look, I know most of us are never going to see eye to eye on everything that happened in Episode 8, but you gotta give some credit where credit is due. For better or worse, The Last Jedi shook things up in the most profound and radical way and helped guide the franchise where it needed to go in order for it to survive and evolve. The very thing that Solo is keeping it from doing. And here come the hate comments. There's a few other things I wasn't too crazy about, like the scene where Han gets his famous last name, which just reeks of corn and cheese with a side order of cringe, the aforementioned droid character, whom I found just a tad bit more annoying than C-3PO and nowhere near as emotionally investing as K-2SO, and the super secret cameo appearance by a certain familiar Star Wars character that just confused the living hell out of casual moviegoers who haven't kept up with the animated series. In fact, you could even say it came across as completely forced. But even with all that heavy baggage, I still gotta commend my boy Ron Howard on this one for taking the wheel and steering the ship in the right direction as far as making the film look good and presentable as humanly possible, even going so far as going back and reshooting approximately 70% of the entire finished product. And while it is kind of a bummer that we'll never get to see what Lord and Miller originally intended, at least we'll always have this golden moment.
Come on, Chewie, hit the hyperdrive!
The other positive aspects that help balance this out to still being a genuinely good movie overall were the always impressive visuals and action set pieces, the infectious bromance between Han and Chewie, the extra layer of detail they added towards the everyday life struggle under the fascist rule of the Empire, that freaky looking band of space pirates who I thought should totally get their own spin-off movie, and the surprising amount of good performances from all the major players. Yes, even the elephant in the room who had trouble with his lines in Hail Caesar managed to win me over.
Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple.
Granted, he doesn't look a damn thing like Harrison Ford, and there was hardly ever a moment where he fully convinced me he was a young Han Solo, which was always going to be a tough act for any young actor to follow, but somehow, he still wound up doing a really good job carrying this movie, and he did it all without having to rely on a bad imitation. And the more you become accepting of him doing his own thing, the more likely you'll have fun with the rest of the film. And for a Star Wars prequel that no one really asked for, I thought this one did quite alright for itself. And much like the last movie I reviewed, let's see how well this one ranks alongside the other live-action films in the Star Wars franchise. Boy, am I gonna get some flack for this. Taking up the entirety of the bottom section of this list is, of course, George Lucas's infamous prequel trilogy, starting with the one that introduced one of Darth Vader's biggest pet peeves.
I don't like sand.
the one that made everyone realize that it was in fact possible for a Star Wars movie to suck, and the one that inspired one of my all-time favorite Robot Chicken moments.
You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them high ground!
And just barely passing those films to claim 7th place is in fact the one I just got done reviewing. The number 6 mantle goes to the epic finale of the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi, while Rogue One becomes the only prequel to be featured in my top 5. The number 4 and number 3 slots are somewhat interchangeable for me, at least for now it is, which I could rightly assume upsets the lot of you, and that would be Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi and J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens.
I can feel your anger.
Which leaves the top 2 spots reserved for, no surprise here, the original 1977 classic and what many refer to as the Empire Strikes Back of Star Wars sequels. And that concludes my very late review for Solo and my entire ranking of the Star Wars franchise. What did you guys think? Feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to keep up with more movie reviews in the near future. But until our next meeting, I'm the host, and may the Force be with you all.